Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Decipher Sociology. Today, we are going to discuss, or rather, we'd like to introduce Sociology's Paper 2. We assume that you are aware of Paper 1 and you have completed a bit of Paper 1. You are aware of the thinkers, especially, and the perspectives. By perspectives, we are referring to the viewpoints of thinkers or the theories which were given by various Western thinkers. So, Sociology Paper 1 is basically anything which the Western thinkers studied with respect to society or a scientific study of society. Now, when we have to study Paper 2, we get a mixed kind of response. There are some people who say that Paper 2 is very easy because everything that is in the syllabus is related to Indian society or things, issues which we have been studying or are aware of since childhood. Because issues such as unemployment, poverty, illiteracy, all these things always they are featured in the newspapers or we have watched them perhaps in televisions and now also we see them in various news apps. So in that respect, sociology paper 2 seems easy, I would say. Okay, it seems easy because the topics which are mentioned in the syllabus, they are familiar, right? But please do not be misguided. Do not think that just because all the topics or the keywords which are mentioned in the syllabus, because they are familiar, it does not always mean that things are easy or you don't have to make an effort like paper 1. So usually it is seen that students of sociology, they give their best in paper 1. They study a lot, they devote a lot of time to paper 1, but they don't give that much time to the study of paper 2. So they kind of rush through paper 2. Okay. So what I would say is that please do not neglect paper 2. Give, if not possible, equal attention, but a good amount of attention to paper 2 also. Because you cannot write GS kind of answers in paper 2. The examiner, on seeing your answer, will immediately understand that you have not studied paper 2 properly. You are not aware of the thinkers, their perspectives, and you are writing on the basis of your knowledge of the newspapers only, or perhaps some GS compilation or something related to society. Right? So, first of all, let's try to understand the syllabus. What is the syllabus? Because this is the guiding point for our preparation which the UPSC has provided, and this has to be studied in detail, especially before starting paper 2. You will see that the syllabus consists of 3 sections: A, B, and C. You have to study this paper serially or sequentially. Please do not jump from one topic to another. So, study it serially. Start with section A because this will be a bit unfamiliar if you are not a sociology student. So, this will be unfamiliar, new. So, start with this. Here you will find that you have to understand the perspectives of thinkers. So, section 1 is focus on thinkers. and about the modernization which happened in India because the British came. Okay, so this part is easy because here you will study, or you will see that modern India is repeated. Social reforms, protests, movements, national movement, everything. So, because this thing is already known to you, so I would suggest that focus on the thinkers, right? Then, when you move on to section B, you will find that it says something like social structure. Now, here you will see that all the topics that have been given, all the topics you have already studied in paper 1. So, here what is going to happen? You have to simply understand the paper 1 topics in the context of India. Okay. So, it starts with structure like rural agrarian structure. Okay. Why rural agrarian structure is so much important? This is because earlier times, India or Indian, the subcontinent, I would say, because that time India did not exist. Okay, so subcontinent, it majorly consisted of villages. We did not have cities till the British came to India. So we emerged or developed from the villages to cities. So now we are developing and we want to become a developed nation somewhere. But our origin is this, the rural agrarian structure. That is why it is very important to study this part. Then, because we are studying rural agrarian structure, you will also see that caste system was also very important. In Indian context, of course, there are different types of stratification system in different parts of the world, but India specifically, it showed the features of caste system, and it was prevalent in all over India, in almost all of the villages. So it was a distinct part of India, like an identity. So whenever someone would come to study India, the Western thinkers or anthropologists, anyone. So first of all, what they would see is, okay, India consisted of villages, and the distinctive part is caste system. Now, apart from caste, the tribes were also important. So here, after rural agrarian, this part is important, caste and tribes. Then we have social classes, because what happened? When British came to India, we found that there were certain changes in the stratification system. New classes came up. So Indian society was a mixture of the traditional setup, the traditional stratification system, and modern stratification system. So we had this also, classes also. Then, like in paper 1, we also study kinship. This will include family, marriage, lineage, descent, household, all those things, and of course, patriarchy. Then we have religion. This is also a part of paper 1. But here we are going to study India, and here we should be aware of the major religious communities in India, the problems of religious minorities, right? So here you will see one thing, that this whole part, it is speaking of the structure of Indian society. What do we understand by structure? Structure means, in respect of society or sociology, in sociology, what do we understand by structure? Patterns found in social institutions, patterns of behavior, which could mean some kinds of rituals, customs. So anything which has a pattern, that part has to be studied in social structure. So here, everything that I mentioned just now here, all these things, they have a certain pattern because that pattern is repeated in different areas of the country. For example, tribes of a particular region share certain pattern, share certain culture, norms, customs. Similarly, kinship, religion, different religions have certain patterns, classes, all those things have a certain pattern, hence the term social structure. So, when we are studying Indian society, first of all, you should have an understanding. One second, huh? Don't know what happened. Okay, sorry. So, here what happens that you have to be aware, or I would say you have to remember. Okay, you have to remember whatever is given in your study book, in your textbook about social structure. Now, when we come to section C, here this part is mainly related to current affairs because here we have to understand what changes are taking place in the structure of Indian society. So here we are studying about social change. Section A, B told us about structure and section C tells us about social change. Right? Now, in social change, what happens? In social change, we have to study about economy. Now, in economy, what happens? That when the British were not there in India, we had a certain setup, economical setup, but after the advent of British and after independence, okay, we thought of development, and that is why planning was important. And this was taken up by the leaders, political leaders of that time, by the state, by the government. So entire process, this process, you should be aware of this, and I believe that you know it because you have studied Indian economical development. Now, in social change, you will also study why we adopted the constitution, because constitution not only helped in setting the structure of Indian society, but also it wanted to set up a certain Indian society which would be a new society. That means there would be elements of social change. Okay. So this means that even though we were suffering from poverty, we had unemployment, we had illiteracy, but We wanted to overcome all these challenges, which means we wanted to experience or bring about social change. And in this process, the constitution played a very important role. That is why constitution is very important along with the legal or judicial system to bring about social change. So this part you have to understand, and I hope that because of polity you are aware of what all elements are there in constitution which help us in building a new kind of society showing social change. Now what about law? Here mainly you should be aware of whatever laws are being passed in favor of different sections. For example, we had laws for farmers. We should also be aware of the changes in, let's say, the IPC. Okay. Then we should be aware of laws for labor, laws for women, laws for children. So in this way, we can see that law is a very important instrument of social change. Now, how will we know all these things? Who is going to tell us? All this, the static part, you can find in any kind of compilation, okay, of society or notes, but because these days UPSC is asking about the current affairs or current affairs issues, therefore we have to read, or we should at least be aware of the issues which come up in the newspaper. Now here I would say that there is a monthly compilation which comes in the Vision IS monthly magazine. You will see the social issues section. That part has to be done sincerely. Do it every month. Please don't wait for the compilation, the yearly compilation to come out, because by then what will happen? You won't have time to analyze it, because they are not going to give you a sociological analysis. They will only give you the social issues. So once you get the social issues, you have to brainstorm upon it, and you should be aware of the different elements. You have to connect it with sociology or sociological themes and perspectives, right? Now, the next one is education. Education is a favorite topic of UPSC. Here we should know about mainly the reports like ASER report, or we should be aware of the education policy, right? Or right to education. What is happening to inclusive education? What about the different sections of society, marginalized, poor, tribals, differently abled? So how is education helping in reducing the differences, or how is it an instrument of justice, equality? But at the same time, you can see that education, if you have read the functionalist approach, you will realize that education is also like a tool of the superstructure. It is trying to emphasize on the status quo. Whatever is happening, people do not want change. They want that there should be differences between the rich and the poor. So it is kind of strengthening the inequalities, or it is making the gap between the rich and poor wider and wider. So all these things you have to read about it. We are going to bring such kind of Zoom sessions for every topic. But today's session is mainly to give you an overview of what is to come, what are you to study, so that even if we conduct those Zoom sessions late, you should be prepared. Okay, you should be well aware of what we are going to study. Now, next is rural and agrarian transformation. So, here also you should read about what is present or what is a village in India, what is a structure of village, what are the castes, what are the classes, and how changes are happening. Changes are happening because of government schemes, poverty alleviation schemes, rural development schemes. Also, farmers have benefited. Why? Because of green revolution. At the same time, all farmers have not been benefited. Then we have how capitalism changed agriculture because it brought technology and it brought mechanization of agriculture. At the same time, not all the farmers they were benefited. There were problems of rural India. There were agrarian unrests. If you remember the farmers' revolts or farmers' movements recently, if you have studied it, you will know that all farmers were not benefited equally. That is why there was a lot of discontent among the farmers. In the agrarian structure or rural India, you will also find a term known as bonded labor. Okay, it is just like slavery. Here, what happens when the labor is not able to repay whatever loan they have taken from, let's say, a money lender or a zamindar or any person, they have to sign a bond that they will work as a labor. Now, what happens sometimes the child or the son is sold as a labor or laborer. So, here it's like a slavery because all the rights have been taken away, and that person has to serve this person, the zamindar, and it is lifelong. You cannot escape. Okay, just like a slave. Another very important point, and recently it has caught the attention of UPSC, that point is migration. Migration is important because it takes place not only between rural and urban India, but it also takes place from, let's say, the Indian continent to abroad. There are many people, there are many laborers from poor sections. They sometimes go to work, let's say, in the Middle East, in low paying jobs, but for them it is a security, it is some kind of job security. That is why they go there. And you have to study what are the problems that they face there. Do they get social security? What kind of benefits do they get? And what are the problems they face? So these are the things that you have to study in migration. Now, when you are studying about migration, urbanization becomes important. Why? Because in India, migration majorly it started because of the setup of urban settlements. Whenever an industry was established, so what would happen? In the industrial region, they would need workers. And these workers, they would mainly come from the rural areas because they needed job, and because these people, they did not provide that much salary, that is why only cheap labor could be employed here, and the source of this cheap labor was rural areas. So they would go to these places sometimes, or mainly they would work as contract laborers. This means no social security and very low pay, unhygienic conditions. They would live in slums. Slums is a very important topic for sociology because every now and then we hear about so many incidents happening in slums. Sometimes there are fires or any incidents happening. So, slums, here you should understand what problems they are facing, the laborers, how is it making a difference. For example, why these people, even though they are facing so many problems, why do they live in slums? Because they have no option. And mainly what happens, these people are daily wage laborers. They do not save money. Now, apart from slums, in urbanization, there are issues like child labor. In many regions, because the adult laborer asks for more money, a child laborer is employed. For example, you will see in small hotels, the child laborer perhaps acts as a waiter or take care of washing the dishes. So small things this person will do, and he will be paid very less, and perhaps they will give him some food and some place to sleep. That's it. Okay. Now, why is this prevalent? Why do children work? It's because of the poor conditions of their family. Sometimes what happens, the father is unable to find work, or sometimes the father is an alcoholic or drunkard, and that is why the child has to take the responsibility of the family and acts like a grown up who is earning livelihood. And this child does not have any education. Sometimes children, they go to schools, they enroll in schools. Let's say for a few years they go to schools, they attend education, but after that they drop out. Mainly this applies to the boys because they want to work. Their parents feel that this time which is spent in education should be spent on earning money. Now, what about girls? Girls drop out because their families, they want these girls to get married, especially in rural areas, in poor areas, marginalized sections. This is very common, early marriage. So you see how everything is interconnected. Now, after this, when we study about urbanization, industrialization, you will also study about politics because politics is a very important part of society. A society consists of many people, and who is going to provide benefits for the people? Who is going to think of people? Of course, the leaders. They have to think of the people. They have to work hard. They have to plan so the economy rises and functions for the upliftment of people. So this mainly consists of state, government, nation. In India, we have democracy. So how is democracy helping in the development of people? Do people know whom they should vote for? Are they taking part in elections? There are many people who do not go to vote. Then we have refugees. What happens to refugees? Are they given citizenship? So this is also a subject of controversy which you should be aware of. Citizenship is a very important topic. What happens to refugees? Because recently what happened in Bangladesh, so many people, they came without any proper rights or without any proper sanctions to India because, one second. So they came to India. Yes, terrorism, separatism, very good. So these people are, although these people are vulnerable, okay, these people, we have to see both sides. These people need a place to stay where they can earn their livelihood, where they are safe, where their family is safe, where the children are safe, where the women are not sexually exploited, they are not molested. But at the same time, there is a danger to the main society also, because we do not know from where they are coming, what are their ideologies, and these people, they do not follow the laws many times, although we cannot generalize it, but yes, it has happened, many instances have happened. They have taken part in crimes because they need money, they do not have any source of livelihood. So we, or the state, the leader, has to be very balanced in taking action for these refugees. Okay, because as somebody said, yes, they take part in terrorism or terrorist activities also, perhaps organized crime, trafficking, human trafficking. So this is controversial topic, and you will have to be very balanced in writing sociological answers in these topics. Okay. Now, another topic when we are studying about polity or politics is political parties. Now, in polity, what you will see that there are two ways to do politics. Okay. First one is the right way, which means somebody is standing for election and that party, let's say, wins the election, party comes to power. This is one way of taking part in politics. What is the other way? The other way is you form a pressure group. You have not. Okay. So, you see that second part is very common because in India, you will see that India consists of people from different sections. By sections, we mean different caste, creed, color, gender. On the form of gender also, we are having so many pressure groups. For trans groups, we are having LGBTQIA+. For women, we are having so many groups. For children, child abuse, we are having so many groups. So, infinite number of groups are there in the form of pressure groups in India. And everyone wants to decide the policies. They want things to be in their favor. It is very difficult for anyone to find a balance. Because if you do something for, let's say, women, for women empowerment, you are coming with any law, let's say, marital rape or divorce or anything, then we have to take care of the other gender also. Here, many times, what happens? These laws are getting misused, and the men are suffering because of false cases of, let's say, domestic abuse. So, a balance to maintain on the basis of so many pressure groups is very, very difficult. Now, in this polity, we have something known as elite. Who are the elite? By the word elite, we mean people who are at a higher level than society or the masses. They are not the masses. They are not the masses. They are above the masses, and they are a major part of the superstructure which Marx talked about. Right? These people have power. Elite definitely means they have some kind of power. This part is related to social, political, economic power. So these people kind of rule the society. What do we mean by rule? Rule means they set the policies. So here we can also say that people who are businessmen, these people also decide what kinds of policies will be there. What do we mean by decide? They should not decide because they are not political leaders. But so many things happen in politics, things are very complex, and there are discussions whenever a policy is being framed, is being created. So, first of all, things will be discussed. Who is going to build the project? What will be the cost? How to buy the land? From where to get the laborers? So, everything has to be discussed with the people who will execute the project. So here, who is going to execute the project? These people, they are going to set up, let's say, industries. That is why the elite is very, very important. They set the policies, they set the terms of the policies. Now, in politics, we have different regions. We have different regions. Mainly, if in the case of India, you would say that we have different states, and mainly the regions, they have been separated. Different regions have been separated in the form of different states. Still, there are certain people who feel that they are alienated, or they are isolated, or they are not inclusive. The policies are not inclusive, are not favorable to them. And these people, they stay in a certain region and they want a separate state for them. Why do they need a separate state? Because a separate state would mean separate fund, separate policies, separate, let's say, universities. Yes, the Northeast region especially. Maybe if they set up a new state, they will get a new IIT, new IM, new AIMS. So that is the reason why these people want a separate state, because they want separate facilities and they want to be given special attention. You want something to be separate because you want the focus should be on you. So here what is happening? These people, especially the Northeast, they want a separate state to be declared for them, and these separate motives or the need for a separate state, it gives rise to feelings of separatism. And these people, they also form pressure groups. Sometimes they act in a non-violent manner, but many times they also act in a violent manner. They take recourse to violent manners, and we also have some kind of terrorist activities happening because of these forces. And separatism is not only between regions, but also, somebody said, between different tribes, especially in Northeast India, as we said, so in Manipur, Kuki, and the Meiteis. So, everything which relates to India, everything which comes in the newspaper, you should know. So, now you will see, ma'am, so many things. How will I read? How will I understand? Once you start, initially, the mountain will be very high. Okay. Initially, what will happen? This will be the mountain. But gradually, when you climb, when you start following the news regularly, you will find that many issues are repeated. And immediately you will say, oh, this is happening in Northeast, this is happening in South India, this is happening in Kashmir. So the initial part, the starting point, it will be difficult, but gradually the climb will be very easy for you. So do not be scared of this climb. Now, as I said that in politics, there are two ways. Hai na? There are two ways. First one is you stand for elections, you become a leader, and then you conduct all the politics. You are in charge of the politics. Now, second thing is pressure groups. What happens in pressure groups? In India, people have a right to protest. If you have gone through the constitution, you have a right to protest, you have a right to attend or to gather, provided that you do not gather with arms, you do not threaten the security of the nation, the integrity of the nation. So there are certain conditions. These pressure groups, they put their demands before the government. Let's say this is the government. So these people, they are pressurizing the government with the help of social movements. These are important, very important in sociology. What kinds of movements? Could be because of peasants, farmers. If you remember, in the last 2-3 years, farmers' movements have gained attention. Then we have women. When you are studying about women's movement, you should be aware of feminism. What are the different waves of feminism? I assume there are 4 waves, so you should be aware of them, how they started. What is ecofeminism? What is Chipko movement? What is the role of women in saving of environment, in development, in capitalism, relation between women and capitalism? Everything you should know. Then we have the backward classes and Dalits. They also feel that they have been marginalized. They have not attained social upliftment. Only few classes, they have risen. Yes, gender budgeting in feminism. Yes, everything related to women will come in this part, the women movements. Gender budgeting. Previously, we did not have gender budgeting. So why gender budgeting has featured now? Because of these movements only. The aim of these movements is to make a change in the policy of the nation. And this is reflected in the different plans, in the budget, in the finances which are allotted. So this simply means that a separate budget is allotted for the welfare of women. So this is a major step. Perhaps tomorrow even the LGBTQIA, they will ask for a different budget. You never know. So these things are new and they are being added gradually. So these things are a sign of social change happening in India. Now coming to these, the Dalit movement, the awareness, how it happened. Here you have to be aware of the ideology of Ambedkar, what he said, what were his beliefs, what was his contribution to the making of the constitution, and how now it has affected the Dalits. How are they asserting? Asserting means, what does asserting mean? Dalit assertion. What do we understand by Dalit assertion? Hmm? It means that you are stressing, or you are magnifying, or you are telling the other person that this is my right and you have not given me this right, although this right has been mentioned in the constitution, but you have not given me this right. I want this right. This means, yes, you claim you want this right for yourself. Yes. So we have satyagraha also happening. So all these things, they are interrelated. Till now, what is the history of Dalit movement? What is the history of backward class movement? है ना? Everything you have to study. Then we have environmental movement. Why has environment become important? Why has environment become important? Why do you think environment is important? Why should we study it in sociology? Yes. So whenever somebody says environment, immediately you think of global warming, immediately you think of climate change, and the rise in the sea level. Now, how is it related to sociology? It is related because there are many people who are staying near, let's say, rivers. What happens when flooding happens? If you remember, recently in Kerala, Wayanad, we saw large scale landslides and how it wiped off. Just imagine, wiped off so many villages. And these people, they were sleeping, and in their sleep, they were washed away. So these things are happening, and this is the adverse effects of development or rapid industrialization, unplanned urbanization. Environment is being affected, and environment is being affected in turn, it is affecting the adversely affecting the people. Now, by people, we are mainly related to mainly the Aam Admi, the masses. They are the first ones to get adversely affected. They are the first ones to bear the brunt or bear the adverse effects. So, we have to take care of the environment because we have to take care of the masses. We have to take care of the people because, of course, the leader has been elected by the people. So, he or she or they have to work for the people. There's no other option. So, environment is very important. What are the measures being taken and how these measures are affecting different sections of people? What is happening in case of development, in case of industries? How people are being displaced, the tribes are being displaced, whether they are getting livelihood. So, what happens to the rehabilitation measures? Are they being given proper compensation? Imagine if tomorrow suddenly someone comes, the government comes and says that your home or house will be demolished and you have to go somewhere else. They will give some amount of money and that's it. No livelihood, nothing. You have to search for the livelihood yourself. So this is very scary because we are not living in such a situation. That is why sometimes we do not realize the effect it has on the lower class or the middle, the marginalized class of our society. It simply unstabilizes you, and let's say your livelihood gets lost. No future, no security. These people rarely have any savings. So who will take care? The government has to take care of these people, has to take care that all the proper compensation is given. They find a certain livelihood because they are deprived of their land, because they were originally farmers. So what kind of work they are going to do now? Maybe they will be a part of some cheap labor, maybe some contract work they will do. So these are the dark realities of urbanization and industrialization. Now, the next movement is ethnicity and identity movements. Here, identity means your identity can come from anything. Okay, your identity can come from your caste, from your tribe, from your class, and gender. Very important, because gender, you will see the LGBTQIA plus finds its identity in a different manner. They call themselves as non-binary. So anyone or any criteria which defines the identity of a person, that will come in identity movements. Ethnicity mainly relates to tribes in context of Indian society. So this is being given a special attention by the UPSC. So you have to be aware of what is happening in the tribal areas, and are they being given a proper place in society? Sometimes or many times these people, they feel isolated, they feel alienated, they feel that policies are not inclusive, they do not have proper education to find good jobs. So it is a task, a huge task before the government to do or change policies in favor of tribes. Then the next important part is population. Now, population is very important in economy or economics, but in sociology also it holds some importance, because if the population is increasing or we do not have any control of this increase, we have a population explosion, then it will affect jobs, because jobs are not increasing at the same rate at which population is increasing. What about education? Is everyone getting education? And is the education giving them jobs? Right? So job oriented education is also important. Here you should at least take a look at the economic survey which comes annually. Go through it a bit to learn about the population. What is the size? What is the growth rate? What about male and female growth rate? Composition? Just a bit of an idea. How much or what percentage is the male and female, and especially of your state? How is it distributed? Like in some places, you will see that they have more number of, let's say, females and less number of male, or less number of females and more number of anything. So what is the trend? This is important. What is the general trend of population? How is the distribution? Then what is the birth rate, the death rate, and then you have to understand about the migration. Why migration? Why do we need to understand migration in population? Because let's say this is area A, let's say this is area B, or this is village, this is a town. So when people, let's say there is an industry which is built in town B, so people, or especially the males, they would start migrating to town B. Then the population ratio will change, the demography will change. And what is the effect of this demography? This type of question, it comes, or it has come in the previous years. What is the impact of migration on the population distribution? Very important. Now, about the government, what is the role of government here? Here, the government has a job to create certain policies for the different sections, different compositions of the population, male, female, children, and now we also have a third gender, others. And what happens in a family? What is the difference between families of upper and middle classes and the lower classes? Do they practice family planning? And what happens when there is a child marriage? When the girl child gets married, she gets married and she is not aware of the role of a mother, or she does not know about family planning. What happens then? Should we allow child marriage? Should we increase the age of marriage? So everything will come under government policy, family planning, because yes, if the female is educated, then she will have better knowledge of raising a family, educating her children, and perhaps she will make sure that a child does not enter into the labor force early when he or she should be studying. So these things are very important. And as somebody mentioned, that whenever there is migration, here in this case, people are migrating, the males, they are migrating from village A to town B. Then the women who are left behind, they have to do all the work, they have to take part in the bringing up of the family. Many times they take up a job, any menial job, they take the job of house help, domestic help, or they start taking part in the agriculture. And this gives rise to a new term, which is not new anymore, which is known as feminization of agriculture. There can also be questions on feminization of labor. So when this is asked, then it will be answered on a more broader scale, like in society, what happens when the female or the females, they enter into the labor force. Here only they are talking about the agriculture, so only the agricultural sector. But when they talk of labor, which means all the sectors, manufacturing, primary, which is agriculture, secondary manufacturing, and tertiary, which is service sector. So all sectors you have to talk about what is happening when the number of women are increasing in the labor force. So this will be known as feminization of labor force. Now there are certain emerging issues. One emerging issue which is important is aging. What do we understand by aging? Why should aging be an issue? Are you aware of this? What is aging? Yes, graying of population. In a society, if you have read economics, you will see that there are mainly on the basis of age, there are three divisions. First one is children. This one is the working population. And this one is the elderly. You know? So here we are focusing on this part. Children ka issue we have already studied in child labor, child abuse. Working population is important. We have studied in industrialization, urbanization, rural, agrarian. These people are engaged in labor. But what about those people who get retired or they are out of the labor force because of their age? What happens to them? Many times they are not treated properly because now they are no longer in the working force. If they have saved enough, then they would lead a good life, but still, finances are only one of the major concerns of these people because now their health is also going to get affected. Also, many times they have to live in old age homes. So here what happens? The family is not with them. So what are the issues which elderly face? Financial, of course, yes. Here the government can make policies or is making policies for the elderly, insurance schemes. Now, health wise, what is happening that they will get more number of issues, and that is why they have to spend a lot of their savings on health issues, going to the hospital, so many medicines they have to take. Also, perhaps they will have to employ a nurse who will take care of them if the family is not there. So here what happens after the health comes the need of a family which maybe they don't have, and this is kind of a moral support they need in these times, which is sometimes or in mainly many times you would see that it is lacking. So what can government do in all these areas, or you can think of your own solutions to these problems which the elderly they are facing, right? There is another issue which is important is sex ratio. What is the sex ratio? They will ask you, or you should at least know, even if they do not ask you, of India. What is the sex ratio of India? Lowest, highest, lowest, highest. You should know. Why is it skewed? What do we understand by skewed? What do we understand by skewed? Very common word. It is coming every now and then. What is skewed? Hmm. Skewed means it is not balanced. Okay. So you have to try to find out the reasons why the sex ratio is skewed. How can we improve this? Can we change the mentality of the people? Because this is one of the major reasons which decides what the people think and how they practice sex determination. So, all these things, along with you have female feticide. This is important. Even though there are measures which are being taken to stop these practices, still these are taking place. And sometimes what happens, because let's say the government hospital is not doing these tests, so what they will do, they will go for some person who has not got the license to conduct these tests, and perhaps they will go for some abortion by not an experienced doctor. These might lead to the death of the mother. So these are things which are happening in India, and everything comes under sociology. You might have seen all these things in some, I think, serials or TV serials also. They give importance to these issues. Now, here another factor is maternal health. Okay, maternal health is important because in India, many I think in third world nations especially, the mother to be, they face a lot of health issues, and one of those is they are anemic. So this is one reason. They do not eat proper food, which is why what happens, a malnourished child is born. And what happens when the child has not been giving proper nutrition? After the birth also, many children, they die. So here we have to study about child and infant mortality. What are the reasons why children are dying? Many places, what happens, the child has not been vaccinated. They do not know the meaning of vaccination, so they do not go for vaccination. So the child is not immune to any kind of diseases, which means that any kind of diseases can affect the child, right? So here the child or infant dies. So this is also important. How you can see the maternal health is related to infant mortality. Now the final topic is the challenges which come in the face of social transformation. So here the challenges are challenges because of development. We have already discussed all these things. Because of environment, because of displacement, then because of poverty. What are the challenges which people face? Because of violence against women. This is an important topic. Why are women not safe in public places? Why are they hesitant to report cases of sexual harassment at the workplace? Do we have laws for these types of incidents, these types of offenses? What about caste conflicts? How to make sure that people live at peace, they learn how to live with proper regard or compassion for each other. Then, as we studied, we have ethnic conflicts like the Manipur issue. Then we have communalism, means religious issues. In different festivals, we see some kind of riots happening. At the same time, we have religious revivalism also happening. So not only is religion declining in importance, but at the same time, there are people, religious gurus, spiritual gurus, they are making efforts to make sure that their religion does not become extinct. So now and every now and then you will see some kind of gathering happening, and people turn out in large numbers, and they make sure that the faith of people increases in these religions. So this is also very important. And lastly, education as an agent of social change. And what happens when someone is not educated? Why are there inequalities in opportunities? Because the constitution says that we should have equal opportunities of education. But what is happening in reality? Do we have equal opportunities? Why do we have inequalities? Why do we have illiteracy? So what are majorly, you have to focus on the social reasons. Now, when you are studying section A and B, you will find that there are a few thinkers that you have to study. Okay, these thinkers are mainly G.S. Gude, M.N. Srinivas, A.R. Desai, Yogendra Singh. Then you have S.C. Dubey, Louis Dibon, Andhra Bete. You have to study Ambedkar, Gandhi, then Surajit Sinha, Dipankar Gupta, and Ranajit Guha. Okay. Although there are many other thinkers also, but at least these thinkers, you should be aware of them so that you can apply these thinkers in section B and section C. Now, in section C, you will find that many times you will not be aware of thinkers. You will not find thinkers for every topic. Does not matter. What matters is, can you relate the question, the section C question, with the topics of the syllabus, with different reports and statistics? That is important, which can give you or the examiner a sociological look. Okay, that is important. The thinker part is not that important, but connecting it with sociological syllabus, the concepts like marginalization, Sanskritization, casteism, conflicts, different reports which come now and then, and any statistic from verified sources. So this is how you are going to study Indian sociology or Indian society. Now, do you have any doubts? Anyone? You can ask, you can unmute yourself and ask. Yes? Do you have any doubts? Yes.
Ma'am, could you guide us about, ma'am, how to read, ma'am, rural sociology book by S.L. Doshi and
Doshi.
P.C. Jain, ma'am? See, ma'am.
Okay, I will share some part of that. A few concepts are important, which I have highlighted.
Yeah,
So I will
yes,
share
ma'am.
in the group. Are you a part of the Cipher Sociology?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll share it, and then you can see what needs to be studied. Apart from that, you can study anything and everything, but you don't have enough time. So few
Yeah.
concepts are only important. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Now, about new social movements, see, the thing is that that is a separate topic. I just want you to ask me if you have any doubt in the approach, okay, approach of Indian society, because these movements and everything, I hope to conduct some sessions every now and then, so okay, at least on every topic, okay, so that you are aware of what to study and how to study, where to study. Now, the sources will be mainly BK Nagla. Although many people they start studying from any notes or they study Nitin Sangwan, but I would suggest that especially for the thinkers, please at least go through this once, BK Nagla. And ESO 12, I believe it is from IGNU, that part for section B. And of course, you can study Nitin Sangwan, it is there for all the topics. And any kind of notes that you have for paper 2, that will do. Plus, do the Vision Monthly, social issues, and if possible, you will be reading the news or newspaper compilation or anything for your GS preparation. So refer to that, or if reading the newspapers, that is also good. In the newspaper, I would say please focus on the Hindu, because this is UPSC's favorite newspaper. So study these things. This should be sufficient. Okay. So let's wind up now. And if you have any further doubts, you can ask in the group. Okay. I'll share that Doshi in Jan.
Thank you.
Okay. All the best and thank you. Thank you so much.